Hey YouTube, Brian LCS, thanks for stopping by the channel and this video, the Amazing Spider-Man number 11 review. So let's jump in, take a look at the creative team. We still have Zeb Wells writing, John Romita Jr. art. There's the inker, colorist, and letterer. So let's jump in. We start off this issue with Peter Parker on the phone with Betty Brant, his former co-worker at the Bugle. And Betty is married to Ned Leeds, and they recently had a child. And so Peter's kind of catching up to see how they're doing. He sent over a kid's chemistry set. And, Betty remarks like, thanks for the gift, but he's probably not going to be able to use it for about 10 years. So they're finishing up their call, and Betty hears some noise from the other room. She runs to go check in on her son, Winston, and she is surprised. And we see, boom, the Hobgoblin. And he's saying, I won't let them hurt him. So, carrying, Winston. So he's talking about Winston. And then Betty says, oh no. And there's a scream. And then we cut to Oscorp. So Peter and Kamala Khan are working on some experiment with Norman. Looks like some type of engine. And Norman really wants them to keep things moving along, get the testing going. And they're kind of stalling. They've run into some issues. They haven't completed their work. And Norman is really kind of pressuring them to get this test going. But fortunately for them, he gets distracted. Somebody comes into his office and he has some other pressing matters to take care of. And so they realize, they've caught a break here. And then Peter ducks out of Oscorp on Kamala and saying, hey, he's been moonlighting and he needs to go. So then we cut to him, Peter, Spider-Man out with Black Cat, and they're swinging above the city. They land on a rooftop, and Peter, basically start talking to Black Cat and says, look, I really need to ask you something. I'd like to go out on a date with you, take you out on a date. She's a little surprised at the offer. And, she says, yeah, I'll think about it. And then he kind of presses a little more. And she goes, well, maybe. And then he presses again. And then she says, probably. So, it looks like, Peter's kind of taking charge. And even, Black Cat notices that. She says, confidence, looks good on you. And then he kind of falls over saying, he can't believe that he pulled that off. And he's almost threw up in his mask a little. So Peter heads home after that, and there is somebody lurking in his doorway, and it is Ned Leeds. So Ned is there to talk to him about Norman Osborn and shows him some documentation and some photos. Ned has been doing some investigation. He's still a reporter, and so he's doing some investigation on Norman. And he reveals the photos of Roderick Kingsley, who is the original Hobgoblin. And so Kingsley's, had a long history with the Hobgoblin. Him and his brother were both, donned the Hobgoblin suit. He also, mind-controlled Ned, and Ned was the Hobgoblin for some time. So there's certainly some history between, Peter and the Hobgoblins, and now Ned and Kingsley. And so Ned is proposing, Peter to work with him to try to figure out what's going on and get some more information from, about Norman and his involvement with Kingsley. And Peter declines because he doesn't want to mess up his job at Oscorp. But then we cut to Peter confronting Norman over it. And we see that Norman is working on some type of new costume, suit. And, Peter basically comes out. He's not pulling any punches and just says, hey, what's going on with you and Roderick Kingsley. And so Norman explains that, look, he's not doing anything, bad or evil. He had taken over Kingsley's business when Kingsley went away to jail, and Norman probably took it not legally, but not his lawyers covered everything up, and so he is working with Kingsley because Kingsley wants it back, and so Norman is just trying to get his lawyers to draw up papers so that he can turn back over Kingsley's former business. And Peter basically explains, look, you can't be going down this road. You can't be getting yourself into trouble again. And Norman, agrees. And so he says, that he has a meet set with Kingsley to turn over the documents and sign back his business over to him. And Peter basically says, I'm not taking no for an answer. And Spider-Man needs to be there just in case things don't go well. And so now we cut to the meetup. In a dark warehouse, and we see Kingsley with a few of his goons, because I guess he's expecting, potentially some issues, or that Norman could, double cross him. And Norman is basically all business, saying, look, here are the paperwork. I'm signing everything back over to you. This is not a game. I want to be done with it. I want to give you back what is yours. And Kingsley's kind of, taken back by it. That's why he brought, some muscle with him. And then we hear the scream or screech. And so it looks like the hobgoblin is coming in. And so they both kind of accuse each other of, setting this up. And then we see a big explosion. Kingsley's goons draw guns, and we see it looks like a few, passes and some more explosions. And then we see somebody off panel, you left your past to fester in darkness. And then we see the hobgoblin, and he's saying, tonight, your crop comes to harvest. Your acid crop comes to harvest. And madness rides the night wind. And so then we cut back to Betty's apartment, and we see Winston, and we see again somebody off panel speaking. Says, "Don't worry, little Winston. I just gave mommy a little something to help her rest. She was tired. We did a lot of good work this evening." And so we see Betty kind of knocked out, Winston there. And assuming that that is the hobgoblin, Ned Leeds. And then we see, the next issue, we see Spider-Man and Hobgoblin going, head to head. So I'm not completely sold that Ned Leeds is the Hobgoblin. I'm not 100% sure. I think we might be in for a little, switcheroo here. I think it's too obvious that it would be Ned, but we'll see. I could be wrong, but I think that might be the little twist. It's kind of set up. It's written in a way that making you think that it's him, but we never really see who's under the mask. So we'll see. Overall, I thought this was a good story. Reintroduction of one of Spidey's, big villains, the Hobgoblin. We did see, Peter take a little bit charge, in his life, asking out the Black Cat, Felicia Hardy. Maybe he's leaving, Mary Jane, behind. There was no Mary Jane mentioned in the story this time. So we'll see. We'll see how that unfolds. But at least, Peter seems to be taking charge. He asked her out. He confronted Norman, so we'll see. I think it's a step in the right direction that Peter's getting things back together for himself. So thinking of my 5 webhead rating system, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, I'm going to go right in the middle. I'm going to go with a 3. Well, I guess 2.5 would be right in the middle, but I'm going to go with a 3. Thought that was a good story. Story read pretty well, moved pretty quick. Like I said, reintroduction of the Hobgoblin. Still, not exactly sure who he is, but overall, I enjoyed it. A good story. and we moved, Peter's struggles along a little bit. He's taking charge. So, like I said, I'll go with a 3 for this issue. Looking forward to issue 12. And let me know down in the comments what you think. If you're reading this, if you're reading The Amazing Spider-Man, what you thought of this issue. Not crazy about this cover, the Hobgoblin mask here. Somebody did mention that could be like a homage to maybe Scream, because it is Halloween season, the Hobgoblin, but who knows? But really not a fan of this cover, but it is the A cover. I've been trying to collect the A covers, so. But let me know. Like I said, let me know down in the comments what you think if you're reading this, or if you're not. What did you think of my review? Did it give you enough of the story? Hopefully it did. But that's it, guys. We're gonna wrap it up. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you for issue 12.